Thank you for joining us today. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Tu Nguyen. I'm an education consultant at Aussizz Group Sydney. Joining us today, we have Mr. Ali Isan, our register migration agent at Aussizz Group Sydney. So today in our topic, we will discuss about trade courses and the PR pathways for these courses. So let me just quickly share my screen. All right. So what are the benefits from studying trade courses? First of all, the tuition fee are very affordable and cheaper compared to university qualifications. Secondly, the courses durations are usually shorter than the university courses. With trade courses, then it involves practical hands-on training. And after most of them, after you complete this 2 years program, you might be eligible to apply for the graduate visa pathways, including according to the new changes. For trade courses, you do normally have quite high salary, and it does give you some PR pathways. There are also employer sponsorship opportunities. And let's say if you want to be your own boss, there's opportunity for you to start up your own business. So here are some few course options. So normally for trade course, you do have option for Cert 3 and Cert 4. So let's say if you are into cooking, you have an option of commercial cookery or baking or patisserie. If you're into automotive, you do have option for Cert 3 and Cert 4 in automotive, in light vehicle, heavy commercial vehicle. If you're into, let's say, houses, then you have an options for electricians, air conditioning, your painting, carpentry, cabinet making, joinery, wooden floor tiling, wooden ceiling lining, bricklaying, all of that. So like I explained earlier, so you do have Cert 3 and Cert 4 options. So in Cert 4, you have an option for plumbing services, building design, building construction, automotive. So for entry requirements for these courses, so basically the minimum age would be 18 years and above. Normally they require you to complete year 11, Australian year 11 or equivalent. For IELTS, it is pretty basic. It is 5.5, no band less than 5. Let's say if you don't have IELTS or PTE available, some colleges can actually help you to organize their own language test in-house. And normally some of these are free of charge. But if you apply for Cert 4, if you complete Cert 3, then you'll be eligible to go for Cert 4. Now, so for tuition fees, as we explained earlier, the tuition fee are normally for trade courses are cheaper than university level. Let's say for commercial cookery package, for Cert 3 and Cert 4, you're looking about from 15,000 to 34,500 approximately for 2 years. Let's say for other courses, the fee is really depends, but you're looking at about $16,000 to $25,000 for the duration of the course for about 1.5 to 2 years. So for concurrent COE, so basically with international students, you are allowed to take an additional course at the same time with your principal course. Let's say if you're studying master right now and you want to study trade courses on the side, you have an option to do so. However, you have to make sure that your concurrent enrollment will not be more than 2 semesters. And when your concurrent enroll, the study load of both degree cannot exceed full-time load. And most importantly, the timetable shouldn't be clashed. So Aussizz proudly represent a lot of institutions across Australia. So in Sydney, we represent a few colleges like AIBT, Superior, Signet, Rich Community College, Apex, TAFE New South Wales, Macallan College, Sydney City College of Management, Crown Education, Leeds College, Australian Health and Management, Australia International College, Trinity Institute, Aspen Education, Lennox and New Era. There are a few more, and some of them do have regional options if you're interested in taking this course in regional area. In Western Australia, we are presenting a few institutions as well. As per the list, we got Mechanical Institute of Training and Technology, Everthorpe College of Constructions, Department of Training Workforce Development, Leeds College, Macallan, Excellent Accounts, Australian Professional Skill Institute, Stanley College, Australian Association of Education and Research, Perth College of Business and Technology, April Institute, Skilled Service Australia. In Northern Territory, we are representing a few institutes as well. We got Australian Institute of Electrotechnology, Charles Darwin University, Sydney City College of Management, and Australia Career College. In ACT, we represent Australia Health and Management Institute, Canberra Institute of Technology, JP International College, Berkeley Education, Canberra Business Institute, and Technology College. In Tasmania, again, we represent a lot of institutes as well. We got Central Australian Institute of Technology, Vocational Training Institute, Unity School, Brighton Pacific, Rich College, Pasco Global, TASTEF, and the list goes on. In Victoria, again, we do represent a lot of institutions, Bendigo, Menzies, Box Hill, Brighton, Universal Institute. So there's a lot of institutes that we represent in terms of trade course. Of course, the list do go on. So if you have any specific questions or queries, you can always get in touch with us. We can help you out. So now we come to the part where everyone are waiting for. So now I will introduce Mr. Ali Ehsan, our registered migration agent. He will talk to you about, discuss to you about the PR pathway from these courses.
Hi everyone, my name is Ali Ehsan. I am registered migration agent at Aussizz Group NSW. Today I'm back with another live session, and this is regarding trade courses. Thank you to you have explained courses and details that what courses students can study. Now the main question is that how these courses can lead you to PR. So I'll share my screen with you, and I'll go through the requirements one by one. Just a moment. Okay, so as Tu mentioned earlier, so trade course, and as you would, everyone in Australia would have seen that, trade occupations like are very good career pathways as well as permanent residency pathways. There are many jobs in different trade courses in Australia, and you get an opportunity to maybe starting your own business after completing a relevant trade course. So aside, other than that, of course, it helps you to obtain permanent residency in Australia as well. So to start with, these are the few trade courses which are most popular, or which are more in demand, and then in terms of PR prospects in Australia. Chef, motor mechanic is there, carpenter is there, painter is there, bricklayer, metal fabricator, wall and floor tiler, solid plasterer, and then there are a few occupations like telecommunication network planner, civil engineering draft person, and other trade occupations. Now, these are few examples of trade courses that can lead you to permanent residency. Now, for skill migration, if you want to apply for skill migration, you'll have to go through skills assessment first. That's the first part. Now, to get skills assessment, you have to go to a relevant assessing authority. So Trade Recognition Australia, TRA, also known as TRA, is the body which assess most of the trade occupations. And then Engineers Australia is there, which do assess certain technician or like trade level occupations as well. So Engineers Australia do assess civil engineering draft persons, telecommunication network planners, and trade TRA do assess chef, motor mechanic, carpenter, painting trade worker, and other occupations. Now, assessment pathway is basically through TRA. There are two ways. Either you go through a job ready program, or you go through a RPL. Now, as Stu mentioned earlier, that there are Certificate 3 and Certificate 4 courses available. For most of the trades, you have to do a Certificate 3. So for example, if you want to become a carpenter, you can do Certificate 3 in carpentry related field. Then after that, you can enroll in a job ready program. I'll explain you that in detail what that is. And or the other way is, if you already have a previous you have RPL, or you have a prior qualification, and then you have 3 years full-time work experience after qualification, full-time, you can apply for skills assessment through that. So people who are studying in Australia do not necessarily need this 3 years work experience if they go through job ready program. But these are the two pathways through TRA. Now, the process is, if for example, if you have a qualification or RPL, and you need 3 years of full-time experience after RPL completion, or you need 6 years full-time experience before or after RPL. Now, if you have international or Australian qualification, you need 3 years of full-time experience completed after, so post-qualification experience. Now, relevant qualification, as I mentioned earlier, or to explain, so those occupation Certificate 3 and Certificate 4 are generally relevant qualifications for most of the trades. Now, job ready program. So this is mainly designed for applicants who have completed a trade course in Australia. So what happens is, once you complete your trade course, let's say you have done Certificate 3 in commercial cookery, and you have done Certificate 4 in commercial cookery, or Certificate 4 and a diploma. So you have completed Australian study requirement and you are eligible to apply for 485. So a first step is you do provisional skills assessment. Now, for provisional skills assessment, you need 360 hours of full-time or part-time work. Okay, and it can be during your studies as well. Let's say if you have taken vocational training, you can use those 360 hours to get provisional skills assessment. Once you have provisional skills assessment, you can go to step 2, which is called job ready employment. Now, in that part, you have to complete 1725 hours of work in same field. Now, and it must take at least one, so it will take at least 1 year duration. So let's say if you have completed 1725 hours in 10 months, you still have to wait for another 2 months before you become eligible to complete this step. Now, for this step, the most important point is that you need a visa which allows you to work full time. So someone who has already utilized their 485 and they are on a student visa now, this option might not suit them unless and until they have full working rights. So, and while step 3 is job ready workplace assessment, where once you complete half the number of hours mentioned above, you can basically write to TRA, and they will an assessor will come to your workplace, they will assess you, and they will assess your skills. And if you pass those and you have completed the number of hours, you will get final assessment outcome. So this whole process takes at least 1 year time, as mentioned earlier. Now, this is the streamlined pathway to get skills assessment through TRA, because other pathway through work experience sometimes does not suit new students. But if someone has prior qualification and 3 years plus experience, they don't have to go through this pathway. Moving next, Engineers Australia skills assessment. So as I mentioned earlier, there are few occupations that Engineers Australia will assess. Now, those occupations are not, so are diploma level qualification, for example, advanced diploma in civil engineering construction. Now, if you do that diploma, that will qualify as and you can go through skills assessment process from Engineers Australia, or you can go to VETSS. But for Engineers Australia, you will have to write a CDR after completing that diploma. Now, CDR is basically where you write 3 career episodes based on the projects that you have done while during your studies, or projects that you have completed during internships or work experience. Now, after that, you also need 6 each in IELTS or PT, and that's exempted. And you will go under a CDR pathway. And once you have skills assessment, you can proceed further with visa options. So all the occupations mentioned in Engineers, so that comes under Engineers Australia, will have this pathway for skills assessment. Now, as I discussed earlier, so for skilled migration, first thing is you get skills assessment, and then you look for PR pathways. Now, the most common skilled pathways are 189, 190, 491. So these are skilled visas and employer-sponsored visas, 482, 186, 494, or 407. Now, briefly telling you about 189, it's a skill-independent visa. Your occupation has to be in the long-term list, and you need minimum 65 points to qualify. Once you lodge EOI and you receive invite, that's when you can lodge your visa. For 190 and 491, 190 is a state-sponsored visa. It's also a permanent visa, while 491 is regional sponsored visa, which is not permanent visa by itself, but it leads you to permanent residency. So you have to live 3 years in at least 3 years in regional Australia after getting 491. You have to work there, earn 53,900 per year for at least 3 years, and then you become eligible for PR if you get 491 visa. Now, to get these 2 visas, you need state or regional sponsor. Now, there is a family sponsor option available in 491 as well. If you have a family member who is living in regional, they can sponsor you as well. And you get 15 additional points for subclass 491 and 5 extra points for subclass 190 visa. Now, for trade occupations, there are like other occupations, trade occupation also has employer-sponsored visa options. Now, many of international students or skilled workers use this pathway to gain their permanent residency. Now, if you you can apply for training visa 407 if you have completed a study or work experience, a 1 year study or work experience in past 2 years. Okay, so and you have an employer, they can sponsor you for a training visa. This visa does not lead to PR, it's up to 2 years depending on your training plan. You can look for 482 visa, which is temporary skill shortage. You need at least 2 years of full-time work experience to become eligible for this. It is up to 4 years if your occupation is in long-term list. Then there is skilled employer sponsored regional visa, where minimum requirement is that you need at least 3 years of work experience. Then 186 is there, which is a permanent visa in employer-sponsored stream. You can go with direct entry if you have skills assessment, you meet English requirement, and you have a relevant qualification. Along, of course, you need employer has to satisfy their requirements. But briefly explaining, all these visas have 1, 2, and 3 years of work experience requirement before you can lodge a valid application. Now, as I mentioned in the last page, so 189 is skill independent visa, and you must be invited, and your occupation has to be on the long-term list. So basically, it's MLTSSL list. Now, there are occupations available. Of course, there are other occupations as well, but I have given few. I'm talking over here about few key occupations. So, chef is there, motor mechanic, carpenter, painting trade worker, bricklayer, wall floor tiler, solid plasterer, telecom network planner, telecom technical officer, civil engineering draft person. So these all occupations are available on the long-term list. Now, list can change, and generally, if immigration has to change occupation list, they will do that in start of financial year, which is 1st July onwards. Now, 189 these days, just to comment on that. So 189, what we have seen for last 2 years was a bit competitive, and immigration did not invite many applicants under that. They have used, a partial quota that they had for 189 for last 2 financial years. And we expect that from coming financial year, which will start in July, 189 will revive, and there are good chances that we will see more invitations in 189. Now, 190 and 491. So as discussed earlier, you have to, for 190 and 491, you do need state or a region to sponsor you. You cannot apply independently like you can apply for 189 visa. Now, starting with going by state by state. So before I go to all the states, so there is one thing that as most of you are aware that it's end of financial year. So most of the states, they either ran out of their quota or they have got very limited seats left. So the requirements I'm discussing will be mostly which were there in the financial year that is ending in June. And so that you can at least see where trade occupations were in last financial year, and then we can hope best for coming financial years. Now, there is a good news as well for 190 and 491, as immigration has increased the number of seats allocated for 190 and 491. So 190 previously was at 11,200 for all the states. Now it has jumped to from next financial year to 20,000. 491 visa, they had assigned 11,200 seats last financial year, and this year it will be, for regional visa, it will be 25,000. So that is a significant increase. Now, that can have positive impact on all the states, regional and state sponsorship programs. Now, starting with NSW, the NSW was open for, it's currently open for 190. They closed for 491, but they are currently open for 190 onshore, and they are also open for offshore. They also opened for offshore applicant few months back. Now, as far as occupations are concerned, most of the occupations are open in 190 in NSW. Some of the examples are civil engineers, chef, motor mechanic, carpenter, bricklayer. So all the examples that I gave in previously. Now, there are a few regions for 491 which so participating regions. So you can see the list there: Central Coast, Central West, Far South Coast. Now, what happens is once NSW announce its requirement in July, all these regions might update their list, and they might update their requirements. And that's when we will know what exact occupation is on the list. But looking into past experience in NSW, trade occupations have always been in demand. Now, 190.491 requirement. So subclass 190 currently, so previously it was that you must be living in NSW. And currently for many occupations, they have also opened for offshore applicants as well. So if they are from offshore, they can also submit expression of interest from there. NSW invite applicants, they rank applicants on the basis of points. And then, so first thing is they look into your occupation, points, and then, of course, your English qualification and your years of work experience. For subclass 491, it's as I mentioned earlier, it's currently closed, but previously they had 3 streams. Stream 1 was for applicants who are living and working in regional NSW. Now that work can be or living can be for at least 3 months to qualify for stream 1. For stream 2, someone who has recently completed study in regional NSW. So this study requirement is for 2 years, and it must be completed in past 24 months. There was stream 3, which was open to anyone who were living in regional NSW or who were living outside of NSW. But this proved to be really competitive because everyone living in other states or even offshore applicants started applying. But I believe, and in my opinion, there will be some changes coming to these, at least in a positive way, for applicants who are, who are interested in applying for 491 through NSW. Victoria is currently closed. They are not accepting new registration of interests, and they introduced a different system. Now, trade occupations were not part of it directly because they asked that you can only apply if you are working in STEM field in Victoria. But as I said earlier, we'll have to wait for new financial year to start, and we'll know where things are going with trade occupations in Victoria. Now, South Australia has always been interesting for occupations because they generally keep most of the occupations on their list. And for 190, the key requirement is that you must be living in South Australia, and you must be currently working in your nominated occupation for the last 12 to 18 months if you are in Adelaide, Greater Adelaide, or at least last 6 months in outer region. Now, these requirements can change. So for few occupations, it's 12 months. For few occupations, it's 18 months. So it's always advisable to double check what requirements are applicable for your particular occupation. But all the trade occupations that I mentioned in the past pages, most of those are in South Australia's list. Now for 491 in South Australia, again, you must be living in South Australia. There are few options where you can still register your interest if you are not living in South Australia, including offshore applicants. And you must be working in your nominated or closely related occupations for at least 6 months. If not, you can apply through Talent and Innovator Stream. Now, Talent and Innovator Stream is for applicants. There are sub-streams in that, including employment, outer regional stream, etc. Now, as I mentioned earlier, so for onshore applicants, it's open, but they have limited seats, as I mentioned, because of the financial year coming towards end. And most of the occupations are there. There are additional pathways for applicants who are South Australian graduates. So if you complete your study from South Australia, you get additional advantage. So just to give you an example, that if the requirement for work experience is 18 months for normal applicant who hasn't studied, it can be reduced to 3 to 6 months for a South Australian graduate. But it depends on every occupation. Now, there can be case-to-case consideration under Talent and Innovators stream, which includes for long-term residents or applicants living and working in outer regional South Australia. Now, this is a very good option. So So for example, if you don't have job in your own field, but you are living and working in outer regional of South Australia, you can apply under that. Queensland is currently closed, and they are expected to open in next financial year. But requirement for subclass 190 was that you must be living and working in Queensland in your nominated occupation for past 6 months immediately prior lodging your EOI. Now, they also need an ongoing employment for further 12 months, and like any other state, you have to make commitment for next 2 years. Then for subclass 491, this requirement is reduced to 3 months in regional Queensland, and but still you'll have to provide an evidence that you have an ongoing employment for at least next 12 months. So Queensland only accepts full-time employments. Now Queensland introduced last year, and they introduced SBO, small business operation options, SBO option for small business owners. Now, the minimum requirement is that you have to invest at least $100,000. You have to purchase a running business. You must own 100% of that business. You have to run that business for 6 months. And this business has to be in regional Queensland. You must employ one Australian citizen or a permanent resident or eligible New Zealand resident or citizen. And so there is no income requirement from the business, but you have to invest $100,000 to purchase. Now, it can be any business, but it cannot be sublease, basically. So this is one very good option. If you are from trade work or, and you are interested in starting a business, maybe this is a good option for you, but you'll have to purchase a business. You cannot start a new one. With new one, they have one option, but that is, you'll have to run business for 1 to 2 years, and then only you can apply through that. Western Australia now. Western Australia has, I know, a lot of clients will be, listeners will be interested in Western Australia. Now, Western Australia recently announced that that applications for offshore applicants will be open in next financial year, and they have expanded the list. They have included around 300 occupations in their graduate list, so which is a very positive change. Now, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that those changes will come into effect from July. The other thing is that Western Australia has 2 pathways. One is general stream and another is graduate stream. In general stream Schedule 2, Schedule 1 does not have as trade occupations as such, but Schedule 2 has many trade occupations. Few of the examples you can see on screens right now. Now, you can apply from anywhere in Australia. You can lodge expression of interest, but preference is given to someone who is already living in Western Australia. Now, once you lodge EOI, you can be invited for 190 or 491, depending on your points and competition at that time. Now, once you have lodged your EOI and you get an invite, you will have to provide a full-time job contract from Western Australia from an employer, and it has to be 1 year full-time job contract. Now, that's where most of people get stuck. They do have enough points. They are either living there or they are living in another state, but they are issued pre-invite, but they are unable to provide job contracts. That requirement is still there. Now, for graduate occupation list, again, so that's for applicants who have completed 2-year study in Western Australia. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they have included almost all trade occupations in that list. For if you're a graduate, you can apply under those occupations. Okay, but still they will look into points, but competition is generally less in graduate stream as compared to what is in general stream. Now, good news is for offshore applicants that Western Australia will be opening soon for them as well. So this is a snapshot of requirements for graduate stream and general stream. I've mentioned living in Australia in both because currently new changes are not in effect yet. But you can go through, so you can see job contract requirement is there in both the cases. Financial capacity is there. And then for graduate stream, you must have studied for 2 years. For general stream, you can be living anywhere in Australia and apply. Northern Territory has also offers 190 or 491. They also have limited quota, limited seats right now. A few of the occupations that are on list include chef, motor mechanic, carpenter, painting trade workers, etc. Now, your occupation, it's not compulsory that your occupation has to be on their list to apply for 190 or 491 if you meet state or regional nomination requirements. Now, for NT graduates, you should have at least studied for 2 years in NT, and you have stayed 6 months immediately after finishing your study, and you have to demonstrate that you made genuine attempts to get job in Northern Territory. So if you can meet that 190 subclass, you can be eligible for subclass 190. For 491, you can if you have studied for 2 years and you cannot live for 6 months, your case can be considered for 491 in Northern Territory. You can go through other field as well. If you if you need 190, at least you should have 2 years work experience. But generally, it's a bit hard unless you're a graduate of Northern Territory. But for 491, you need at least 6 months relevant work experience in NT plus. You must be living in NT for past 12 months. So requirements are a bit tough if you are not a graduate because you need work experience in your own field. Tasmania, as many people are aware that Tasmania is also currently closed, but trade occupations have been in demand in Tasmania in the past, and I believe they will be in demand there in future as well. Now, if I look into the Tasmanian skilled occupation list that was published, that was for this financial year, there are all these trade occupations are on the list, and there are many more which are still on Tasmania skill occupation list, which shows that Tasmania needs these trade occupations. Now, you can apply for 190 or 491 either under Tasmanian graduate category, or you can apply under working in Tasmanian category, or you can apply for 491 under small business or family stream. Now, there are updates that Tasmania might be changing their requirements from new financial year, but we cannot say with certainty unless they release next financial year requirements. ACT, that's the last state which is left. Now, ACT is also open currently. They have occupations in the list as well, including chef, carpenter, motor mechanics, including diesel, general, bakers, pastry cooks, ICT support technicians, etc. Now, ACT, they will be, ACT updates its list after every 4 months, but currently these occupations are open in ACT. Now, the process for ACT is that you have to submit ACT metrics, which has 6 months validity. Once you submit your metrics, you claim points on the basis of metrics. The ACT issues invites every now and then, generally twice a month or sometimes thrice a month. And then once you are invited, you lodge nomination and then visa. Now, for ACT, minimum requirement is that you must be, for 190 is that you must be living and working in ACT for last 6 months immediately before the date of matric submission. Or for 491, it's 3 months. Now, you can be working in any field to become eligible, but it has to be 6 months, 35 hours per week for 190, and your occupation must be on the list, or you are the holder of 457 or 482 visa, or you are applying under small business category. Now for 491, you can work for 3 months. It does not have to be full-time. It can be part-time as well. Minimum 20 hours per week. Your occupation should be on the list or apply through, or if you are a holder of 482, 457 visa, or you can go through small business stream there as well. And like other states, ACT also has a cap. And once they reach that, they don't issue further invitations. So everyone, that's all from our side. If you have any questions or queries, you can reach out to us. I will take questions on Facebook and other platforms now, and I'll try to answer all of them one by one. If any question is unanswered, we will reply to that in a couple of days. So if you have any question, you can leave in chat in comment section on our Facebook, or you can just email us. We will be happy to help you. So I have a question from Karan. He wants to know that his occupation is on the Western Australia list, or he's painting trade worker, and what are his chances? He is already living in Western Australia and have a job contract. So Karan, I will advise you to, of course, lodge EOI under both streams if your occupation, is in both stream, 190 and 491. And if you can increase points, your chances will get better for 190. Now, when next financial year starts, we will see what allocation Western Australia has and how many invites they are issuing. Now, because as you know that if you're not a graduate are given preference in terms of, generally they don't have high competition. So I believe you are not Western Australian graduate. So you will have some competition, but the good thing is that if you are living in Western Australia and you are already working there, you will be given preference over someone who is applying from outside of Western Australia. But we'll have to wait and see, a couple of rounds to determine where points are going. So Zaki has asked that if it's taking ages to get PR. Yeah, I understand that there are delays in visa processing, but it's not only for trade, it's generally for other occupations as well. And department is aware of that, but due to the workload and COVID situation, processing time got a bit longer. We expect that it will improve in future, but processing times are always like that. Sometimes, they can start giving grant soon. Sometimes it takes longer. So it's not just with trade. There are many other occupations who are in the same boat. So I would say keep your fingers crossed and keep on waiting. So I've got a question. He's doing JRP, Job Ready program in Western Australia, and he's doing as a chef. Now, he has asked that what are his chances for 190 with 60 plus 5 points. So he will have exact 65 points. Now, look, Chamath, you have to wait for, as I said earlier, you have to wait for next financial year. Once they start inviting applicants, we will know where are the cutoffs for different occupations. I will, however, advise you to increase your points because that will help you to get 190 easier. And at the same time, consider 491 as well. Now, related to your work experience, if you have post-qualification work experience at a required level, you can claim points. If that was before or during, then it's not suggested to claim points for that. TJ, look, there can be different options, of course. It's not, your question is not relevant to trade occupations as such. I will advise you to book an appointment with one of our registered migration agents to discuss your options in details. Look, there can be options, but we'll have to explore and we'll have to review all of your profile. It's not possible to explain all your options here right now in the question answer session, but we'll be happy to help you if you book consultation with one of our registered migration agents. So Hasib, you mentioned that you are finishing certificate 3 in voluntary tiling. So look, if you have completed 2-year study, you can apply for a 485 visa probably. Then once you get 485 visa, you have to complete job ready program. You have to work 1 year. You have to complete 1725 hours in same field. And using that, you can get your skills assessment. Once you have skills assessment, you'll have good chances of getting state sponsor 190. Meanwhile, I will also advise you to increase points because competition can increase with time. Nisar, it's not related question, but I'm happy to answer that. Look, you can study while you are on 485 visa. So there is no restriction on study while you're on a 485, whether it be a nursing course or a trade course. So you can, if you are planning on study, I will advise you to start it as soon as possible. So you can complete it earlier and then apply for your residency sooner. Just looking for other questions as well. So one client has asked that if while working on, the experience that they do as part of their job ready program, can it be considered to claim points? Yes, if it is minimum 20 hours or more than that, and you have worked 1 year post qualification, you can claim 5 points for 1 year Australian work experience requirement from there. Amrit, you're asking for, so you have finished 2-year study I believe it's a 2-year study if you've done it from UTAS and it's an MPA. As per the past rules, yes, you can apply. You were eligible to apply for 190, but Tasmania, they also, because of the competition with accounting related occupation, I always advise my clients and followers that try to keep on looking for a job in your own field, or at least you should you should be able to give a good career plan as well. Now you'll have to wait for July. Once Tasmania release new requirements, then it will be determined that if you're eligible for 190 just on the basis of study, or you'll have to do something else as well. And so another question related to other question related to certificate 3 and 4. So look, you can, so there is no such thing that you must do certificate 4 in all the trades. Okay, There are trades which only require certificate 3 only. And for example, chef needs certificate 4, but cook, you only need certificate 3. For motor mechanic, you only need certificate 3. Okay. But if your certificate 3 is for 2 years, you meet the requirement, you can still apply for 485 just using certificate 3. You don't necessarily need cert 4 or a diploma. So the minimum requirement is certificate 3 for most of the trades. Jamin, okay, so you have completed certificate 3 in automotive. Again, there are a couple of things that I will need to know, that if you have 485 visa, or if your study was for 2 years, or you meet Australian study requirement, you can apply for a 485 visa and you can complete job ready program. And on job ready program, once you've completed job ready program for 1 year, you can get skills assessment, and then you can look for state 189, 190 or 491 options, depending on which state are you residing right now. Amrit, yes, you mentioned that you are doing job in dairy farm. Look, previously, yes, Tasmania, because agriculture was one of the priority sector in Tasmania, so they have given many nominations for people who were working in farming or agriculture related field. But as I said, we'll have to wait for new year, new financial year, and once Tasmania has released the requirements, it will become clear that if you have to work for certain time, or you can apply directly. But I will still advise you to, whichever field you are working in, you must have a strong career plan. So that's really important. That's what we have seen gets highest weightage for people who do not have jobs in their nominated occupations. All good. I believe I have answered all the questions that were asked. And if you have any other question or queries, you can always reach out to us. Here are the details, or phone number and email address. Please feel free to email us or book an appointment. We'll be happy to help you with your admission, PR pathways, 485, and all other visas. So I thank all of you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.